Derek, good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thanks for sitting down. We're here at Jesus Culture Sacramento. It's just your church, dude.
It's home base right here, hanging out.
Well, you're a busy man. I appreciate you making the time. As we started planning this, it's like, well, I got this 45-minute slot here between, all these things. But man, you got a lot going on. You're, of course, you're worship pastor here at Jesus Culture Sacramento, songwriter. You travel and lead. But you're also like a dad to 3 kids.
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time with them, and you happen to be married to Becky Johnson.
Yeah,
which
Who
is
also
like
is fairly busy herself.
Which is a whole nother set of things.
Whole world.
And I think we've got actually a picture of your sweet little family here. Aw, look at you guys.
That's my babies.
So cute. But yeah, man, talk through just what's kind of life like right now? What's the rhythm in the Johnson household?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot on our plate. There's
you need to take it up a notch, man.
Yeah, right.
I don't feel like you're being productive.
No, we don't have enough like bored moments around our house. But man, I think so much of it, honestly, is we've really tried to lean in and just live a life of vision. Whether it's with our calling with the Lord or what we're doing with our children, what we're doing in our marriage. It's funny, I was talking to a friend recently. They've just had a new son, and they're just making that huge leap, that huge adjustment from, okay, we were just a married couple, now we've got our first child, and I was kind of encouraging him actually in how incredible it is to watch your capacity grow when you just kind of refresh your vision.
Yeah.
And so we felt that with every kid, with every season, even with every new role. I was on the road for 7, 8, 9 years full time before taking on this role, and so even that was this huge adjustment of, okay, now I have a congregation I'm trying to shepherd. Right. I have a team I'm trying to pastor. Now we're having a third kid. It was like in each season watching capacity grow. But man, the more that we kind of try to refine our vision and really put first things first, it is amazing. I'm not just saying it. It's amazing how. What felt stressful in a past season, if we've got vision for it, then the really hard moments actually lead to tons of breakthrough, and then we do it with a bunch of passion, So, with 3 kids and our roles and all the things that we have going on, we laugh. It's like from the moment we wake up till about 9 p.m., there's really not a free moment. But in those hours, it's like even the hardest moments with little kids, and so many of them come. You're like, okay, one's constantly hungry, one needs a diaper change, and in our house we have a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So they all need such uniquely different things. Yeah. But one of the things we challenge ourselves with all the time as parents is, well, what's our vision? What's our vision for our kids? What are we wanting to disciple them in? So then it makes the crazy moments where you're like, I'm about to blow my lid, and you get back to, if we can navigate this challenging moment with some grace and with some calmness towards our kids, it's going to be a huge win. And so we just kind of keep those things in front of us. But man, it's wild. I'll leave this to go hop in the drive line, pickup line at my kids' school. We're picking up another friend from kindergarten, so I'll have like 4 kids in my car.
The car line could be really productive. Yeah. I talk to so many people. We have so many conference calls with people that are in the car rider line.
It's real. No, it's literally, I have like an office on wheels. I feel like the Lincoln Lawyer or something. Like I do some of my best.
You get in line, whip out the iPad,
exactly.
Start pounding out some emails.
Yes, it's real. That little drive line's my saving grace right now. But yeah, it is our life. It's a full plate, but I've loved actually watching both of us grow as parents. I've loved watching both of us grow as leaders, and stuff that honestly a year ago felt overwhelming and kind of impossible for us. You keep that vision, we keep it in front of us, we make adjustments along the way, and then we feel our capacity grow, and those things that felt hard or stressful all of a sudden are like, oh, actually I'm excited to do that. I'm excited to lean into that. I'm excited to try to do family dinner with manners with that age range. It's like it's hard work, but it's going to actually pay off. So I think we just try to keep that in front of us. We have a little saying that we say with our kids, especially as they navigate, what school, and one daughter's been doing a play, and it just all this kind of extracurricular things, but we say Johnsons do hard things. And it's like we want to put that message in front of our kids so they don't shy away from challenge, but they go, no, like, you're so capable to do it. it might hurt a little bit, but you're going to really be excited on the other side. So yeah,
wow.
full plate though, for sure.
So 2 invitations come in, one for Becky, one for you.
Yeah.
What's the determining factor? You flip a coin?
Yeah. Where it is, how long do we need to be gone? And yeah, can Dad manage if you're gone for that many nights? That's what it is.
Wow. Like, what are some tools? I just realized we're probably speaking to a lot of people that are juggling a lot of things.
Yeah.
But any tools that you've figured out, like, help you just kind of stay on top of things, like, life hacks to stay.
Man, there's a really practical one. We literally were talking about it yesterday. We're doing it tomorrow night. But it's spending about 90 minutes of strategy a week together as a married couple. We've got 3 kids that we need strategy for. We got an entire church team that we need strategy for. We have, the itinerant element of our ministry that we need strategy for. So setting down and having practically 90 minutes to go, what is it looking like for finances? What's it looking like for calendar? Where are the people that are on our radar that we're realizing, man, maybe we haven't reached out to them in a while, or so just putting those things in front of us and then wrapping strategy around it, and that's been a lifesaver. And I love, and again, I'll speak to my own journey in that. It was I've been a lifelong creative. My parents really wrestled to get me out the door to high school every day, because I'm just like, I just want to go write songs and play music, and I don't know how I don't need this. I'm not super structured in that way, but man, the Lord's taken me on such an incredible journey of recognizing. I think most creatives actually shoot themselves in the foot by not working that out in their life, by not recognizing that actually having some planning and having some structure in your life will take your creativity to the next level.
Wow, that's good.
And it really helps kind of iron out many of your weaknesses. It's like, you imagine creatively, if everything you do is just on the basis of a whim or an inspiration, you're like, what are you going to do when you got 3 kids that are in front of you that you need? It's like, you have to plan for those things. And so, man, calendar's saving grace for us, just to make sure we're getting some strategy in front of us practically.
Right. Is that the date night activity? It's like,
we even that, right? It's like in that 90 minutes, we're like, okay, so when are we going to do a date night that's nothing but fun?
You're right.
Where we aren't having to talk about all these things.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, for her and I too. And I love this. Like, her and I, we really did. We got saved together. We were ushered into the kingdom together. We've really grown up in the Lord together. And so, sometimes talking about work feels like work, but many times her and I, it's not to sound spiritual, it's just our reality. We were sitting the other night. It's like 11:30 at night, and we're just chatting about what we're reading about the Holy Spirit in Romans, and we just love it. Like, we just love discovering more of who God is. We love listening to the Lord on how are we going to disciple people in that, and that we want to know it, we want to live it, and then we want to teach people that. So we really, I believe so deeply in those things to be an outflow of our lives. And so it's like, for us, we can end up going like, okay, maybe we should go like watch a movie right now and like chill out for a minute.
That's right.
So we have to be
Just
a little
turn it
strategic with that and turn it off a little bit.
I don't want to talk church for 24 hours.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because we'll easily slide into like, oh, cool, we're talking about, look what we're reading about the early church in Acts, and then we're like, well, what about our church? Then we slide into strategy mode. So, but again, it's like just making sure that we try to plan those things out, because I think, and I speak to all that out of the seasons where we've done it the wrong way, where it was like we were just trying to, oh, hey, we'll do that, we'll get to that, we'll make that happen. Yeah, we'll go on that date night next week, or whatever, and that it's not a great strategy long term. It's like we've got to get down, we got to nail some things down, and then make ourselves do it. Right. And usually that is it's so fulfilling on the other side. It's like we're living the life that we want to, because we plan for it.
Sure.
It seems practical, but I think so many times people feel like that's a constraint on their freedom. And I'm like, oh, you will. I actually teach my kids this all the time. It's like the concept of first things first. Do the most important thing first. So you come home from school, you've got homework to do. If you do that first, you will have just rewarded yourself with a whole evening of freedom. So it's like, then you're not on the back foot. You're not on like the hamster wheel of, oh, I'm not getting all these things done. I got a ton of anxiety, I got a ton of stress. Which, if you talk to enough creative people long enough, they'll have a lot of that going on. You're like, I promise you, if you planned your life a little bit more. And I speak to that again as a lifelong creative, where it was like, that was so much of my journey. I felt like calendars and just requirements of my time felt like a burden. And there's something about getting strategic and like taking on challenges willfully. It opens up so much freedom, like real freedom on the other side of it. So
yeah, I mean, how do you protect your creativity and find time for that? Just sort of in the busy.
Yeah, I mean, especially now. Again, some of the planning stuff is really strategic, just making time for it.
Yeah, if you put a name on the blocks of times, at least, even though it's busy, it feels like okay, I see a break or a little opening. I've got it planned right here.
Yeah. And one of the things I do, I mean, this isn't to throw shade on whim and inspiration, because I always have my phone on me, laughing about doing drive line to pick up my kids from school or whatever. I'm like, that's one of the spaces where I'm there, and there's just kind of some moments to sit and think and listen and create. I'll sing a million little ideas into my phone, and so then when I have times to write that I've set aside, that's actually where I go to. So it's not in that moment that I'm coming in going like, oh, I hope I sit down right now and get a fresh idea. It's that I've actually been gathering ideas, I've been gathering concepts, I've been gathering melodies, so that when I sit down, I've got something to lean into and to work with. Yeah. So I think that's one of the huge things that having that little library of ideas in your phone is something that's always readily available, has always been incredibly helpful for me. And then just a practical part of my life, like my kids know a normal routine in our household might be like, hey, we just did snack time and we set up this thing and that thing, and now Dad's over on the piano like writing something, and I have literally have hundreds of little song ideas that are interrupted with like a kid saying like, Dad, I'm hungry, I need a snack. And I'm like, pause, okay, let me get you some Cheerios, and we go back and we come back to it. But I love that. It's like part of the culture, the normalcy of our homes. Our kids will see me in those moments, and so
that's good.
I really learned, in the early days of songwriting, it was like I needed to be tucked away in some private room, candles on, lights are low, like that mode, and there's something really authentic about it. It's just the outflow of my life. It's like we are worshipers in and out of the church, in and off the stage. Like, this is who we are. We're pursuing Jesus. And so I love that part of it. My kids get to just experience that in the day-to-day. It's not something that Dad turns on. And it's like at any moment you might find Dad crying on the piano, and that's okay. That's totally normal.
Okay?
Like, Dad, are you okay? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really good.
Those happy tears or sad tears. A little bit of both. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things I noticed, we just recorded this year, Jesus Culture album released in July. You had 2 songs on that album, and getting to walk through that and sort of see your process from those songs were you were in Nashville with the team just doing some writing. And I believe both of those songs started, kind of in that Nashville session. And you brought those songs home, and then you began to introduce those through church. And it was great to see that. Of course, I was in Nashville, but I'm watching every week to be like, and we were texting. It's like, are you leading it this week? But to see it come in and seeing how those songs evolved over several weeks, was a really cool process. I thought it was actually a really healthy process, and the end result was like amazing from where the song started to where it ended up.
Right.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, and just because I think more like worship writers, because they have not that their congregations are the guinea pigs, but you've got something that's like, this is great. I want to share this with my church or part of this with church. It comes in, you sense what happened. And good and could be better in the room, and then you go back and you kind of work again.
I mean, it's funny because I think it's one of the great reasons why I think great writers and great worship leaders, they're going to be pretty steeped in a congregation to really mine those songs, because you do start to see the similarities just between just any new song and the song that you've written. The trouble is that if I, over the first few times that I was leading, a song like Faith for it in our church, it's just a new song. And almost every time that you lead a new song, the congregations, they're leaning in, they're reading the words, they're kind of learning it for the first time. And if you wrote it, there's such an amazing temptation right there to be so self-conscious. Like, okay, it didn't work. No one likes it. Maybe I should go back and rethink that and rethink this. But there's something about having those kind of the years of experience of not paying too much attention to that discouragement that wants to kind of come in and go, okay, how do we go back to the drawing board? Maybe this song needs to be introduced a few more weeks before we start to see that momentum take off.
Yeah.
A lot like any new song can have. It's just like it needs a little bit on it. And then what was so cool about having these songs coming alive here in church is that most songs, almost every song, especially in the worship context, it starts to take on such a life of its own as you start to lead it. Some moments start to flow out naturally, and so it's kind of a common language I'll use when I'm talking about songs. But I'm like, well, until I've led that song a couple of times, I don't even know what it can do. And what I mean by do is like, where's the momentum spiritually that can happen in the room?
Sure.
And it just takes a little bit of time to kind of prime the pump and get that thing off the ground. So it was amazing to see those songs come alive in the church. And Faith Forward Again was just another one where it was like, I'm having people in the church just talk about how it's speaking to seasons that they were in, where they were just needing to remind themselves of who God is. Like, who's that breakthrough God that I need to cling to for hope? And that's what the song came out of, is out of our own journey with some of that stuff. And then I really loved seeing a song like King Jesus come alive in our church, because it was just this very vertical.
Right.
We just want to spend time in the presence. We want to minister to the Lord. And really, I felt like it was one of those songs in this last season that was instrumental in helping our people just linger in the presence. You know, that we're not too quick to rush past moments, that we can kind of get to the end of a song and let it breathe, let it live for a minute, and just see what the Lord wants to do. So I loved that process. And then, you know, one of the stuff that we were talking about is being able to take those songs, those new songs, into the congregation, and then be willing to make those adjustments and fine tune it and refine it a little bit. And I would encourage all writers and all songwriters never to really view that as, honestly, even as critiques. It's like, it's the moment to make things better. It's the moment to start to work and, you know, flow with the band and just call everyone a little bit higher, ourselves included. Like, oh yeah, it's what we do in the writing room. Yeah. You're throwing out ideas and you're like, well, that line is good, but it could be better. And none of that's personal. It's just that we're on this journey to make something excellent, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's great to watch that happen in this process. And then,
that's
we got to go capture them live, and by then it was like there was already some time on these songs, and felt like there was a little more authority on it at that time.
I think and again, that was a second benefit, is that by the time we got into actually the night of recording those songs, you'd already lived with these songs for several months, you know, and there were, you know, just a comfort level in leading, you know, the song, and it allows you to lead it, present it with a little more confidence and a little more authority than maybe if it's like the first time that you've ever, which would be scary, you know. Totally. It's like, okay, it's recording, could go good, could go bad, but you know, we're going for it.
It's never to make all the worship leaders out there, and I know there's a lot of them self-conscious, but it's like we do have to be sober-minded too. We kind of project where we're at a little bit. So when we lead, if we're a little gun-shy, if we're a little self-conscious, you know, people can kind of feel that. So it's important to come in and lead things confidently. And, you know, we would always have the term, even as we were doing recordings or just leading and doing conferences and all those things, is that, well, we're gonna fail confidently. Like, even if we go left and the band goes right and we kind of have a weird moment, we're gonna do it with confidence. We're gonna go after those moments and just kind of trust that it'll all work itself out.
So good.
I think coming in strong and leading strong is really a huge gift that we bring to the church, and we can do that as worship leaders, you know.
Yeah, as worship pastor, I mean, one of your many hats. What's you feel like is really going well right now in the ministry, and maybe on the tail end of that, like, what's the challenge right now?
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is stuff we've talked about many times, but I think one of the amazing fruits of even some of the last seasons, even of this ministry, is, we were talking about this yesterday, but we're now seeing all across the world. It's like there is like movements of worship, you know, where this wasn't a thing a decade ago. You know, it's like there are churches all over who actually have caught that vision of the importance of writing songs for their body that's in front of them, and then even you know, the potential breakthrough and influence that can be when they throw those things up on YouTube, and now there's people from all over the world who can just kind of drink from that well of what God's doing in their community. And that just, you know, because of the internet and all the things, like, that just wasn't a thing a few decades ago. And so I love that all that has happened. And then I think, what we're going after, what we're cultivating here is just trying to raise up worship leaders to, I think, first and foremost, really reach this congregation. Like, let's shepherd the people in this room. Let's lead them into encounters with the Lord. Let's teach them how to minister. Let's teach them how to engage in worship. And so going on that journey with, and we have, a handful of younger worship leaders. Some have been here for a while. Some are newer. But just kind of putting those values into them as they're growing in confidence, as they're growing in their calling and their personal anointing and all those things. And then just reminding them that ultimately what the Lord does beyond these four walls is, it's not the stuff that we can control, but it's the stuff that we're incredibly thankful and privileged to be a part of. But I think, the challenge is sometimes if we put the cart before the horse. But I don't think that's anything new. There's always going to be, in this generation and the next generation and beyond, there's always going to be that tension of making sure that we come with pure hands and clean hearts in the place of worship. That we're always coming in, that we're yielded, and we're looking to it to go, I don't want Derek to get in the way of Jesus as we're coming into the room to minister to the Lord and to minister to people. So I think being able to invite young people into that process is so fun, and it's what we're seeing really go well here. It's what we're seeing them really thrive in, and I love watching them come up and just lead with pure hearts and just work on all the internal world stuff so they can come up and we just try to make this a practice that we're really here to focus on the Lord. All the other stuff actually becomes a lot less stressful, and there's a lot less anxiety when that's the goal. Even all the stuff that we do, we give feedback on a very regular basis across the board to all musicians, all worship leaders, whether it's from songs they select that we're like, that didn't work too great, to choices that musicians make in a set. All of that is so intentional to just disciple them practically, to think critically about what it is that you're doing. Let's enter into worship with a real sober-mindedness that we're going to lead the people into the presence, and we want to do that with a plan. We want to do that with strategy. And so just kind of, teaching some of that stuff has been amazing, just to see their response. And then I think to see how we talk about this all the time here, but like, I want to set leaders up for success. And that's actually, that part is on me as a leader. If I just throw people into the deep end and I've not really equipped them well, and then they lead some set and now they feel like a failure and the room felt weird, it's all those things that it's actually really worth working through those things and giving them practical tools to set them up well. And man, I couldn't be more thankful and grateful for the leaders that are here. They're so open and receptive to feedback, and they're hungry, they want to grow. And above all, like the thing that we had our worship team meeting at my house last night, and just to open up a time them sharing testimonies and just sharing what God's been doing in their lives in this season, how they're experiencing God in the church and in the services and through their leading, and it was just incredible. These are believers who are like living life filled with the Holy Spirit, and that's the thing that we want to export from this church and from this movement, is that there's something real, there's a genuine, authentic move of the Holy Spirit that's happening in our midst, and so we want to steward that well. We want to lead that wisely, and then and again, to speak to just the amazing influence that these things can have, and we're seeing it. And I think that Jesus Culture was one of those early innovators in seeing some of this stuff get out there, where and just getting connected to all these churches all over the world where they're writing songs. They understand the importance. It's amazing when we've been able to write songs that have spoken to churches and cultures all across the world, that whatever God was doing here, he was doing it there, and they could relate to it. But man, also what a beautiful privilege to just to start that fire in songwriters all around the world who are like, man, we have testimonies in our congregation. We have stuff that God's doing. And to see that happening in the church, this is what we prayed for. Is that we would see this pop up all over, worship movements happening all over the earth, and it's happening, and I love it.
Yeah, man, it's so good. As we're wrapping up, I was looking through your Instagram the other day, and I was like, any man that's got a whole category in Instagram labeled coffee. So, last parting shots for this. What's your go-to? your high recommendation.
Yes. Yeah. So literally the morning routine around the Johnson house is like alarms go off. All kids wake up. We get them all dressed. And then pretty much the very next thing I do is head directly downstairs to my coffee station. So I've got a little coffee station. I've got the little like electric kettle. It's going to heat it to the perfect temperature.
Right.
I've got like the Burr coffee grinder so that we get like the exact right grain and grind. And then I use a Chemex every morning. The Chemex coffee.
So you're measuring out,
We measure it out, man. It's 45 grams of coffee, 700 grams of water, no more, no less. And that, like my wife and I, like the slower that process takes, the grumpier we get. It's like, listen, this needs to be like first priorities. We're going to go downstairs. We're going to make the coffee. But man, coffee's like, it's what gets us going in the morning.
Yeah. And what's your go-to?
So
roast?
I have a little shout out to mistobox.com. I have a coffee subscription where they send it in. I'm like a big Ethiopian light roast guy.
We were laughing the other day. You're really like a coffee influencer.
Yeah, no, I'm like I've got a few callings in my life. One of them is to inspire the world to drink good coffee.
All right.
But I started like most people. I had my first cup of coffee at like kind of a shady truck stop where you had to load it with milk and sugar to make it bearable at all. So it's been like a fine journey to get to craft coffee that shows up at my doorstep. But it's great. It's the way to start the day, and I'm happy. When I go drive my kids to school, got a warm cup of Ethiopian coffee, and all is right. So.
Amazing. Well, Derek, thanks for sitting down, man. Thanks for making the time and all the stuff that you're doing, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man.